Thanks for tuning in to Columbia's hottest podcast, Here for the Health of It. We are pumped that you're going to listen to this one. In this episode, we talked about all things therapy, counseling, couples counseling with Jill Smith, who's the CEO of Jill Smith and Associates, and Katie Haney, who is an associate there as well.
We touch on the creativity behind the name Jill Smith's and Associates.
Yep. We talk about all kinds of couples therapy scenarios.
Emotional-faced therapy.
And Jill lets us in on her biggest hiccup she's ever had as a therapist.
Enjoy this episode.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Here for the Health of It podcast. I'm Dr. Randy. This is Dr. Tom. We are here at the Columbia Family Chiropractic Studio, and we have some great guests for you today. We have two guests, a double guester again. We have Jill Smith, who's the CEO and owner of Jill Smith and Associates. And then we have Katie Haney, who also works with her. And you were telling me a little bit about your schooling and all the things that it takes to become a counselor. So maybe if you guys could introduce yourself, tell us who you are, how long you've been doing it, and kind of what you specialize in.
Hi, we're so excited to be here. Yes, I'm Jill Smith, and I started Jill Smith and Associates Counseling 20 years ago. I know,
Wow.
right?
Do you tell people your age or no? We keep that
what
quiet.
What makes you think about my age all of a sudden? See, I'm already offended.
Right
It's
into it.
I've got a problem with, how do I, where's the door? I obviously started when I was 10.
Yep.
Right.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, that's what you were getting at. But you know what? I'm proud of my age, honestly. I feel like I know what I'm doing finally in life and also in the office. And it takes time to figure all that out. So plus I know I look a lot younger than I am. So that helps.
Definitely.
But
Definitely.
yeah, but it started 20 years ago. And then about 7 years in, I started hiring people. And it has been such an amazing journey. In my opinion, this work is way too complicated and way too lonely to do alone. And so I thought I've got to get a team with me and to do this with me and to make this fun and make this the best, to bring the best possible therapy out there. So here we are. We've got 14 therapists, 2 offices, one in Lexington, and we just opened a huge, beautiful office on the corner of Bull and Laurel. So
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, we're excited.
All right. And Katie, tell us about yourself.
Yes, so I have been at Jill Smith and Associates since April of 2022. And honestly, I'm just honored to be here with someone who is so experienced. And I would just still say I'm a little baby at this, but I am learning and growing. I was telling you earlier that I'm a licensed professional counselor associate. And so what that means is I'm in that 2-year associate stage or apprenticeship, but I'll be fully licensed in April. And I've just been really enjoying learning and growing at the practice.
So when you graduate, so you get it sounds like you get a master's degree, and then you have a 2-year period, and you need a certain number of hours before you're officially licensed. Is that how it works?
Correct. They make us kind of go through a long process, which is as it should be. So yes, you have to have a master's degree to work as a licensed counselor in our state and in all the states really in the country. And then you are just beginning. You learn on the job. And you get a caseload regardless of your path. Katie is a master's in counseling, but I have a master's in social work, which is another route. And then as you're working and getting to know your clients and getting to know really the art of therapy, you're working under close supervision. So it's a process, and it takes several years.
Yeah. Cool.
And then at our practice, I'll go ahead and add that we believe in continued supervision. So even after the state has dotted all your I's and crossed all your T's and said, go, you do you. We require that our staff stay in supervision. We have a supervisor at the practice, somebody that is paid just to be there to help us and meet with us. And we work with each other a lot too. So it goes on at our practice.
Yeah. And I bet 20 years ago, things were pretty different in what people were coming in for compared to now.
Oh, that's so true. I've never really thought about that, but yes, I think what comes to mind is the biggest change is the way the paradigm has shifted, and therapy is no longer taboo, I would say, on the main. I mean, there are, of course, some some people and ideas that of folks that are really don't want to have come in and talk to a stranger, if you will, about their private things. But in general, everyone is talking now about therapy and about what has happened in our society when mental health is not looked at and taken care of, by our systems, and just how important it is to know yourself and to be in touch with your emotions. So everyone's talking about it now, and one of the things I like to say is we have children, elementary school children, who ask their parents, please get me a therapist. Yeah.
Nice.
So it's become part of our lexicon.
Yeah, I like that. So take me back to what made you decide to be a therapist? Was there a story? Was there a trauma in your life? Was there something where you were like, this is what I want to do?
Because it sounds kind of terrible to a lot of people. Someone just tell me all their problems all day long. That sounds terrible to me.
Well, Katie and I both like to talk about our story, but I'll start, and I'm chuckling as you say that, because we do kind of like to laugh at ourselves, but we really love it. Honestly, it is such an amazing career, and it's such an honor to sit with people every day. But yeah, I take your point. I think for me, a couple of things. I was always that kind of person that observed life and observed people, and my family was wonderful, but we were just as dysfunctional as the next family. And I think I realize now that I spent a lot of time observing my mom and dad and what wasn't working for them and what wasn't working for me as their child. And then, but never really did a deep dive into any of that observation, let me say. I just noticed it. But then I carried it forward into my life and got married right out of college and had 2 children back to back. And then everything kind of sort of fell apart, I would say, in my own internal world. I'm sure I had postpartum depression, didn't know what that was back then, and began to realize that I was unhappy, didn't know what to do with it, went through a divorce, and began to get very curious about what was happening inside of me. Why was I in such personal turmoil? I didn't know, but I knew that I wanted to understand myself and understand other people. So I looked into, what would it take to get a master's and begin to know myself and to be a therapist.
Nice.
Yeah.
How about you, Katie?
No, I love that question because as you were talking, I was reflecting back on my journey. And I think I knew actually from an early age, which I think is maybe, I don't know, uncommon, but I think from age 16 or teenage years that I wanted to be a counselor, but I think I didn't know what that meant. I just knew, okay, I want to help people in my profession. I think that would give me so much joy.
Right.
So I went and pursued. I grew up in Minnesota and went into my undergrad in Omaha, Nebraska for it'd be my bachelor's in psychology. But just ended up starting a journey. I ended up, interesting that you brought up trauma. I am a survivor of sexual trauma, and that was through college. And I think that ended up really obviously changing the trajectory for me. I think it really scared me of being able to do this work and wow, will I be able to help people in the same way? It really shifted everything. I moved from Omaha to Denver and I still kept on the path. I worked at an eating disorder center for 2 years. I was dating my now husband, that's the reason why I ended up in Columbia.
Yeah.
But then, I ended up, funny enough, starting grad school in Columbia at CIU. And then I also worked at Sexual Trauma Services, which ended up being such a full circle moment for me. And I had so much supervision during that time to kind of, I guess, affirm me in that actually this is not uncommon, that you are so drawn to this population. And I think it gives me such a level of understanding, empathy, and now I see a lot of trauma survivors. And I think, it just ended up being so, I don't know, just such a affirming process for me. But I guess long story short, I did end up being a counselor, but wow, I didn't expect the path.
The pathway, yeah. And I guess that brings me to did that help shape what you guys specialize in? Or who's each one of your ideal patient or client or prototype or archetype or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, interesting. I think it did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I now specialize in couples.
Oh, nice.
And like a lot of therapists, when I first started, I opened the doors to see who would come to me, and I had small children. And so I saw a lot of children. My child's pediatrician was a important person in this field, and he worked for one of our for the Dickerson Center for Children, which is one of our family services centers for children who've been abused. Anyway, he was very supportive of me. His name was Dr. Dwight Reynolds, and he sent me many, many children and families. But over the years, I have shifted into specializing in couples, and I think that's such a great point. That's the reason that I'm so passionate and curious about how to help couples and how important it is to help couples, because of some of the pain I've been through with my first relationship, which is still painful for me that it didn't work out.
Right.
Yeah, I take divorce and marriage is ending very, very seriously. But knowing now that I've gotten a ton of training and certifications and so on in my chosen approach to helping couples, which is called emotionally focused therapy for couples, now I feel so confident that I can help and I can value the family. Of course, if a couple decides that they're not going to be together, we help with that too. But it's really nice to feel like I know what I'm doing and I can make an impact.
Yeah.
And then, same. Now, a big portion of my caseload are college students.
Really?
That was one of the hardest times in my life. And I think I'm just so drawn to young women and helping them. And it ends up being such a rewarding part of my job to see a client maybe in her sophomore year really deeply struggling, and maybe now she's in her junior year, and us to be able to reflect back on all of the change she has made. It's such an honor to be a part of that story. So it's, again, full circle. I keep saying that, but it really is. I think I'm so drawn to just young women, and it ends up being now.
Right.
And then also trauma, but I see a variety of, mental health issues, but.
Today's episode is brought to you by our sponsor, Columbia Family Chiropractic, with 3 easy-to-get-to locations, one in Forest Acres, which is by Trader Joe's, one in O'Neill Court by the DMV, and one in the Northeast by Sand Hills. You'll be sure to have somewhere near you. They offer a ton of services, from corrective care, on-site digital x-rays, spinal decompression for bulging or herniated discs, dry needling for injuries, pediatric care, and a Class 4 laser. They accept all your major insurances. And if you mention this ad, you'll get a discount on your first appointment. Check out their website at cfc4health.com or Google Columbia Family Chiropractic. That's cfc4health.com.
How does that work if somebody comes into the practice and they don't know? Do you guys, like, say Randy walks in, do you just kind of know, send him to the
peg? You just peg.
This
Look
is the
at me.
loon bag. We got a guy for him. Or
We
like,
have a special process for people like Dr. Randy. Yes.
I was wondering if there is like a funneling system to kind of get them to the right therapist, since it's a larger practice.
There is, and that's such an important part of what we do, because when you make that first phone call, typically, or email reach out, or website reach out, whatever, it's very nerve-wracking typically. And sometimes, I think oftentimes, people are at their most vulnerable when they finally say, okay, I want to go ahead and make an appointment. And they want to be seen, and they want someone to spend time with them. So we have invested in a really top-notch administrative team who know how to ask just enough questions. We certainly don't want to ask people to delve into their story,
Right.
but we want to know, what do you have in mind? Gender, and you'd be surprised. There isn't a predictable gender request, and we do have both men and women that work at our practice. But, it's not like men always want to see men or women always want to see women. But, many times that's the case. So we ask about, do you have a preference of gender or style? Some of our therapists are pretty, a little more on the intense side, and really want to, like to, have the word intense keeps coming to mind. But maybe they're a little more direct and a little more willing to to dive deeply more quickly. Others are maybe softer and go a little bit slower. Ideally, we're going to follow what the client wants, but we're going to ask questions like that. And then with having different offices, that's a big part of it too. Another thing that isn't quite as interesting is time. Sometimes people say, I've got to come after work at 5:00. So that helps us help them narrow down their choice of therapist. But ultimately, the client gets to decide. We have bios on our website with photos. And of course, if you get started with a therapist, you can change. If you don't feel like really it's the best fit, I know some of the doctor's offices that I've been to recently, they're not going to let you change, but we are very flexible. And we want you to feel like you're in the right place. So if you're just not feeling it, you can talk to me or you can talk to our administrative staff, and we'll figure it out and try another route.
Yeah,
Nice.
That's good. And so let's say that you had a 40-year-old guy, or he's turning 40 and struggling with it.
Are you asking for a friend?
I'm asking, let's say that this is hypothetical.
Hypothetically, he's wearing a hat and flowers,
And sitting right beside me.
quarter zip.
What does that look like? And here's an interesting thing that I've noticed about 40-year-olds is that's when men generally have their midlife crisis, right? It used to be buy the convertible and whatever, leave their
has that gone
family.
by the wayside, the convertible?
I don't think convertibles are cool anymore. I don't know what
I haven't been looking for any.
I don't know what you would buy. But I would always read in books. I like to read a lot of books, and they would always talk about how there's this thing at 40 where guys kind of have this weird, and I don't know if crisis is the right word, but something happens inside of them where there's a shift. And I've been trying to research it and prep it. Like I've been telling my wife, like I don't get ready for it because I don't know what kind of weird stuff I'm going to do.
It's coming.
That's right. So I don't know if there's a question in that. Can you speak to what? And I also don't know what percentage of 40-year-old guys are in your practice. But what does that look like for a lot of 40-year-old guys, and what's the shift look like in their head, whatever that seems to be?
Right. Well, actually, yes, we have tons of men that come to our practice, and it's just so cool, not to stereotype, excuse me, but it's so lovely to see that, again, we're all talking, whereas before guys were just to wipe away their tears or not feel it. I know things are different, and I think most men are getting more woke and realizing, hey, I'm really angry or I'm really sad and I want to go talk about it. So yes, we have a lot of men, and I do think that there's a time in life when you realize I've lived a little, and I've made some decisions, and some options are now maybe no longer available to me, and it's can trigger some feelings of regret, depression, sadness, things being maybe a little less in our control as we used to feel, and we can have an emotional shift. And I think that's a lot of what the midlife crisis is about, and I think it's real. So
It's like they feel like they're getting
come
old.
on in. Well, yeah. I mean, part of it, right?
I kind of feel like that.
We're hitting a point in our life where we're no longer looking at everybody else as older than us. That now a lot of people are younger than us, and the way I think our bodies and minds are blessedly geared, we don't really think about the end of life. We don't think about the fact that we're all going to die. Not to bring it down, but there I go. And so you do reach a point when things maybe start to hurt a little bit, or you realize, you're out on the soccer field with your child and you're not running as much as you used to. And you begin to have an awakening that we're human, and there's a lot of emotions that come with that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Our friend Mark Losby always says, don't let the old man in. Do you think that's good advice or bad advice?
Or swing the door. I think of it as swing the door wide open and let the comfortable old man in. Go to bed earlier. You know what I mean? Like some of the things that these guys are still doing, our friends, they're like, it's just too much. And then I start thinking like, yeah, I want to wind it down. I want to go to bed at 9 o'clock.
I love that.
See?
I'm going to be honest. I'm leaning in more in that direction.
Right? See, I'm going the opposite direction with it. And I'm running faster and further. I'm lifting heavier. I'm doing more.
Well, I heard that your goal is to lift like 315.
Yes,
right?
I had 3 big goals.
Where are we with that, by the way?
275. I don't think I'm going to get there without hurting myself. I didn't have enough time.
Actually, 275 is pretty impressive.
Thank you.
But yeah, one of the things that we talk about in therapy is the power of the word "and." And so I think you could think, have the wisdom of both. Like don't give up. Don't let your mental health, your physical health, your emotional health, and your connections to people, don't let those things go. There's no need to, life is so beautiful and so rich, and there's no need to hasten the loss of any of that. And it's okay to accept the season that you're in, and that recliner is looking really nice. And, there's so many cool things to stream on Netflix.
Go on.
So excited.
So, yeah, maybe both.
Yeah.
Sometimes the answer is gray, but I think embracing your age, like I think you said that earlier of like, no, I've embraced my age, but maybe there is that mindset of staying open and I still have goals. Life hasn't ended because of the age.
I feel like I'm going to live a long time. So I feel good about that. But I think that I start, I want to know my metrics more. Whereas say when I was in my 30s, which I still am, but when I turn this 40, I'm like, all right, I want to just know that I'm still clicking on the right cylinders, and I can get away with it if I want to. But I get worried because now I'm more hyper aware of man, that does hurt a little bit more.
Yeah.
Or I like sleeping in a little bit more or going to bed a little earlier. And those are the things that I don't necessarily want them to creep in too much, as long as I know I can still go sprint. I heard the stat once, it's something like 95% of people that are 30 years old, men and women, will never sprint again.
Wow.
At 30 years old. Which is young.
That is young.
And so I just start thinking about when's the last time I'm going to do fill in the blank. And I don't even know what that is. Pick up your the little things, pick up your kids or play a backyard football, things that you don't think about, but they did disappear at a certain point or age in your life. And it's those are the things that start creeping in.
So you're paying attention,
Yeah,
but you're
yeah.
trying not to be driven or obsessed by those thoughts or
Right.
those fears.
Right.
I heard George Clooney say that he noticed he was walking more slowly, and that is, your sprinting story reminded me of this, and he was like, gosh, no, I'm not, that's one thing that older people do, is their stride becomes shorter and they walk more slowly. And he was like, I'm gonna push myself. I'm gonna keep that speed up. I mean, and that
Right.
that sounds kind of
Yeah,
like an
yeah.
old person comment. But if George said it, then it can't be bad.
Right.
But I like what you're saying. You're trying to pay attention and not succumb
Yeah.
and feel good. It feels good to be healthy.
Yeah. And let these idiots be idiots, the young guys, right?
Exactly.
I mean,
That's
you're
what I
going to
kinda
live.
think.
So here's the thing. You're probably going to live 57
110.
more years. So,
110.
all right. So let's say that you're going to live 70 more years.
Yeah.
You're going to start letting the old man in at 40
Yeah, you got
for 70 years.
The old man's just he's
I-
more aware of stuff.
I look at it like I want to let
He's
the old
aware.
man in for 25 years, maybe. So if I'm planning to be 100, that's 75. If you start too early, it just goes downhill.
You don't want to start too early. I agree. But maybe there's another man like the wiser guy
Yes.
or something.
let the wise
So we don't
man
have to
in.
go straight
Yes.
from
Oh,
young
that's
to old.
You're going to rebrand
Let
that.
me put
Yeah,
that
the
down.
old
I'm going to make
man.
a shirt out of that. Let the
Let
wise
the
man
wise
in.
man in.
Okay. Now, how do you guys control your facial expressions, say in a session? Do you guys practice if somebody just hits you with something off the wall and you're either want to laugh or oh my God, what do you guys do? Are you in the
Katie.
mirror?
Question.
What do you do, Katie?
What do you do? But no, I think I end up kind of matching the energy of the client. And that isn't universal. I would say that's not black and white because sometimes, I will switch my tone in a way of trying to steer it in a different direction. But I would say if someone is naming something really painful or sharing, or they are laughing and they're saying something like, wow, this most ridiculous thing just happened. I try to match the energy a little bit, but then sometimes just the therapy session needs a different tone or needs me to guide the session. So
Right.
I'm constantly, I think, keeping in check the feeling of, the uncomfortability of making sure
like they're comfortable all the time, and that
Yeah.
sometimes even my tone is a way to confront or to guide or to pull something out of, whatever they're saying. I don't know if I answered the question,
Yeah.
but it's, I mean,
Well, and like body
Still
language
learning.
and like weird stuff. Like, are you guys very hyper conscious of like, oh my God, I've been tapping my pen or I've been twirling it or like my,
Or my legs are crossed and my,
My
foot's
legs are-
falling
yeah.
asleep, but I can't shift now
Yeah.
mid-sentence.
Yeah, we are. Like we were joking the other day about making sure we don't like slurp on our coffee in front of people because
Right.
our clients are staring at us, and so we want to be. We don't want to be distracting or annoying to them. We're hyper conscious of a lot of things.
That would be so gross.
It's so
I don't
funny.
think I don't think
I think
could
I'm a
handle
slurper
that.
for sure.
Yeah, but you definitely do. But it's not in a
No big
not in
deal.
a
not a deal
setting where,
breaker.
where
Okay.
someone's like pouring their heart out to you.
I even worry sometimes when I am drinking my coffee. Sometimes I lose eye contact because the mug is like getting in the.
yeah.
I'm in it. I am just like,
You
wait, I'm
are.
like breaking eye contact with this person
Yeah.
because I need to get that last sip of coffee. I think about it a lot.
Do you guys ever record yourselves? Like what? Like, do you have a camera on your? Do you?
Well, I need to
Like
do it
game
more
film.
Yes.
because just finding that system of do I do it on my iPhone, digital laptop situation.
Right.
I think you've said that you dream of having
Well,
a camera.
Yes.
in
So
the
one of
rooms.
our, as we've grown, this is one of our growing pains, but one of the pillars that we believe in is taping ourselves. Again, I mentioned emotionally focused therapy, but
Yeah.
it's just a fabulous model. And they introduced to my life the beauty of taping sessions. And then, of course, we do that with the client's permission. And
Sure.
we keep the tapes, extremely private, off the cloud, et cetera. But it is amazingly powerful to see yourself do therapy, not only to see, like you were just saying, how much slurping you're doing
Right.
or breaking of eye contact, Katie,
Yeah.
but to see where you've missed an opportunity or where, what you might do better.
Yeah, yeah.
So one of the things that we're working on doing in our new office is setting up a system where we do tape and maybe I'll have our own camera. Right now we share cameras, et cetera. But that's a
Yeah,
big
that'd
part
be-
of our culture.
Like, have you guys ever farted in a session or anything like?
I'm
You
so
like it.
fearful.
Yeah, I know.
Of
Like
if
your
and
stomach
when that
growling
day.
too loud, or
Oh my goodness.
I want to change
Or
the
burp.
subject.
Thank you. Thank you. God bless you.
like behind the scenes footage. Oh, did you see Katie farted today during her session with Tony?
That would be the day.
So I've always felt like therapy is very female centric or focused.
Yeah,
And maybe it's shifting a little bit.
it is.
But my thought about like if you're going to target more males would be to have something that they like a breaking room. So let's say that you're bringing up something that made them really mad, and then you'd be like, "I'll go smash that vase across the wall," and then they'd come back. You'd be like, "Oh, do you feel better?" They'd be like, "Actually, yeah, that did help," but in a way that it's not like harmful or coming out at a time when they're not explaining it, and then
Right.
they talk about it.
You've been thinking about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna
New
have to
business
hire
plan.
you for some. Yeah, do
you want me to be a consultant?
I would
I'll
like
go
to
see
be a
Randy.
consultant.
I'll make the wall. I'll be sitting there with glasses and a little suit.
But yeah,
smash room.
yeah, a smash room. Don't they have those
Oh,
in
yeah.
some cities? Like you go and destroy things. I think I
Yes,
saw that on
yeah.
the Housewives. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's my source of all information.
But the male, so
But,
can you speak to the male-female
yeah.
side of it? Because females, I know, just love talking and
Yeah,
love talking
yeah.
about their emotions and
Yeah.
themselves, and someone to just listen to and vent to sounds great to most women that I know.
Right, right. To most,
But to
women.
me, that sounds kind of terrible.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're right. We try no longer to sort of put everybody in the same bucket. But
Yep.
I agree. I would say the vast majority of women do. We're enculturated to process out loud, to process our emotions much more than men are, and to lean into other girlfriends and to get right to the heart of the matter when we're with girlfriends. And men, of course, don't do that as well. Like we, typically avoid and talk about sports or how
Right.
much they want to, lift, et cetera. So
Yep.
we're keeping the old
Their
man
golf-
out.
their
Just a
golf
couple
game.
of,
Yeah.
just a couple of, right.
There'll be, we'll go 5 hours on a golf course
And not
not know a single
pithy
personal thing about the
piece
other
of-
person.
Wow. Yeah.
And perfectly, I mean, we talk the whole time about like who made the putt,
Yeah,
how far
you're
it went.
talking, and I don't want to devalue that. I mean, you're connecting with other guys around things that you love, and so that's absolutely important. And we don't all want to be the same, but we do respect that we're going to go at a different pace and go in a different way with most of our guys. And I think it's just like anybody would with a friend or someone they care about. We open the floor and see what the client wants to talk about, and then we gradually and gently go with them. And maybe, like Katie was saying with changing the mood, it wouldn't be uncommon, for example, if someone continues to sort of have nervous laughter around an issue, or to say, but I don't need to talk about that. Just say, well, wait a minute, can we pause there for a second? Can I just ask you a little bit more about what the laughter might be covering up, or what you might be kind of telling me you don't need to work on? I'd love to hear more about that. And so we try to make it natural and not torturous. And, most people want to come back.
Yeah. Sure.
Most people are like, yeah, sign me up. This felt really good. Sometimes we can't even put our finger on what felt so good in the therapy session. It's just, you feel as if you've been, rejuvenated, and there's a deeper breath, a spring in the step. I mean, it's just the process of sharing in a different way, and sharing with someone who's neutral in your life that you don't have to hold back from, or that you don't have to worry, are they going to think this about me or that about me?
Or go tell people.
Or go tell people, right? I'm going. So now you guys stop me if I'm saying too much. But interestingly, one of the things we rely upon to make therapy good is to build a relationship with our clients. And so that's so important, and it's so powerful, but it can also get in the way, because our clients can, and I keep saying our client, I'm a therapy client too. I mean, I think all good therapists should be in therapy. So, but sometimes we start holding back with our therapist because we do have a relationship with them. We usually like our therapist and respect them. And so if there is something that we perceive as particularly dark or out of character, it's harder to bring that up too in therapy sometimes, if we really don't want our therapist to think ill of us. So ideally, even if it's not the thing we talk about, ideally the therapist can pick up on, there's stuff that we're avoiding. What's that about? And, know that I have nothing but respect and no judgment for you. And so, we work in that realm too, if that makes sense. Yeah.
What are people like not allowed to tell you? Is everything on the table? Like, if, let's just say I stabbed somebody, is that something you cannot say anything about? Like, is that
like attorney-client privilege?
Yeah. Like, what shouldn't people say to you guys?
Well, we hope.
Like, what's off
This
limits?
wasn't in my notes, my prep notes
wasn't
that
in
you
the
guys
prep?
provided me. Really, we want you to be able to tell us everything. If one of the rules that's legally out there and is in our paperwork that you have to sign when you come in is if you tell us something about plans to hurt somebody.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. If you
Yep.
have thoughts that, I seriously might take this person out, and I'm wrestling with that decision, and I've purchased, a weapon, etc. Then we are legally bound to tell you and to alert the authorities and make sure that person is warned. So it's called a duty to warn that we have. Yeah. We also are mandated reporters. So if someone tells us about a vulnerable child or a vulnerable adult, and by vulnerable, I mean that the adult that's taking care of them is subjecting them to abuse or neglect,
right,
then we are legally bound to, again, tell the client, we're gonna report this, and then to report it.
Well, so I guess with that, I've heard of, and I don't know if, is this a thing? Almost like in the Catholic world, they have confessional, where you go in and you don't see the other person, the priest. Is that something that anybody can request or want that? Say they wanted to do a session, but it was like, I don't want you to see me.
You have to go into a curtain.
Yeah, like you're behind a curtain or under a blanket.
I haven't experienced this yet of that request.
Like, is that-
have you?
Do they do like confessional therapy?
I brought a blanket. Just throw this over your head.
All right, I'll be right in. Get under the blanket first.
How much does this
Again,
cost?
you're asking for a friend, right? Not that
Yeah.
you've gone to therapy
Well-
under a blanket.
Like, yeah, that's what I was wondering, if there's something similar to the confessional kind of
There
thing.
isn't, in my knowledge, and I know that I don't know everything, but no. However, a couple of thoughts about that. We now do what we call telehealth, which is just like therapy over video cameras using Zoom or using another platform. And that's really cool. That came about during COVID. And we prefer people to come into the office. We're in the office. We think, live in vivo therapy is the way to go. But if you can't make it in, or if you're, under the weather but can still do your therapy, we have that option. Sometimes we will have people that on telehealth don't want to turn the camera on. And so that's what your question
That's
reminded me of.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think where we go with that is not, no, you cannot do that, but what's going on and why do you want to be
Right.
under the proverbial blanket, proverbial curtain
Yes.
in the Catholic Church? What's going
Yeah.
on? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what your fear is. And let's.
That makes me just think of
explore.
has there been any very weird requests? Like, I have to wear a Furby helmet while I do my session, or what are they, is that what it is? Furry? Like a mask or something.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Has there been any
I'm gonna have to
requests
turn
over
this
the
to you.
over the years?
I don't know if I can think of a odd request.
I feel like I'm letting you guys down because
I
I
know.
can't think of one. I
God.
could make one up.
Anybody that likes to like scream, like just to let out, like just scream as loud as they can? Is that a thing?
Maybe on TV, but no. I mean, definitely we've had people that need to be in care, that
Right.
struggle with their anger and they act out in the office, and which can be a good thing too. I mean, not that we want people to be.
Because you see it.
Yes, like the main way people act out is, I would say, in a couple session, they might get up and leave and slam the door, which we don't want. We want people to learn to definitely feel that I am so angry, and I'm so angry that you can't hear me, or that, you're saying the same thing about me that isn't true, or what have you. But we want to help folks calm down enough to stay in the session and use their words to say all this. It's not that you want to
Regulate.
squash it and not feel it, but to be able to regulate themselves and, work it out with us.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have things like that happen on occasion.
Yeah, I'd say it wouldn't be that uncommon to have a session where there is maybe yelling or shouting or sobs or those types of things.
Yeah.
But like Jill was saying, I think that's also a really powerful thing for us to talk about,
Right.
and in this healthy way between the therapist and the client, kind of modeling how we either deal with disruption of someone storming out,
Yeah,
or anger in a couple session. It can be a really great tool for us.
Like, if somebody's using a lot of swear words, do you guys mirror that and say like, yeah, this fucking pen that I bought the other day?
Honestly, that's a great question, because I think that's actually such a great sign that they're comfortable with us.
Right. You want them
And-
swearing a little bit.
Yeah.
Or they don't know that they swear that much.
Right.
Right, that too. And I think I find so often where they do, or they're kind of hiding that part of themselves, or
Yeah.
they'll say sorry at the beginning, or like, oh, shoot, I didn't mean to say that. But I think actually it ends up being kind of a tool I use if my client curses. I don't know if I'm saying, fuck it, or, like, just going off the
Right.
rails with my speech. But I think it actually could be such a way for me to connect with the client of, yeah, you've been dealing with some shit lately. Like, or you
Right.
this is so hard. And whatever, language I end up using, obviously tasteful, but I think it ends up kind of being a way for me to kind of normalize, like, we're
The
both
swearing,
two,
yeah.
we're two humans that deal with such crap, and life
Yeah.
is really hard and messy.
Yeah, I agree. I love that answer. And I would only add that if somebody swears like in anger, and they're like uncontrollable anger, or anger that we feel is, then we might say, okay, let's really slow it down, and let's I'm starting
Yeah.
to feel uncomfortable. I wonder if people in your life also feel this way. But in general, yes, we want to just be real with people.
Nice.
Yes.
Have you ever seen the show Billions?
I saw the first few
Very beginning.
first few episodes.
So there's she's actually an MD, but she's basically a therapist. Her name's Wendy. Performance coach.
Yeah.
Yes. And there's times the writing in it is so good because the guy will come in there who's a Wall Street trader in this big hedge fund, and he sits down and his numbers are not great. And she'll say something like, stand up. You know that trade that you've been knowing you need to make, but you haven't made yet? Think about it. And do it. And she'll man up, get him in his face.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, I'm doing it. And then he just goes and makes all the things that he's been so scared of.
Yeah.
So there's this difference between what I think is called psychotherapy and performance coaching or life coaching. And where does the line go from there?
Yeah. Well, that's another great question. The way that I like to think about it or explain it is that we are going to dive deeper, and we're going to ultimately want to know, what is your hesitation, and why don't you believe in yourself, and or do you believe in yourself, or what's happening when you're on the floor and you have a hard time, making that call, the trading floor, that is. I'm going back to billions.
Yep.
So I think one way to think about it is that coaches are helping you with what's happening right in front of you, and asking a lot of open-ended questions or giving you advice. We are dealing with what's happening right in front of you and what happened yesterday, what's happening with your emotions about the future. And we are engaging in much more of a conversation that's more in depth than just saying, go do it. You can do it, go do it.
So who would a person go to for that then? Because that's always been interesting to me. There will be something that you need to do, but it's so far outside of your comfort zone. Let's say that you've been buying properties that are small, but you need to go to a massive, 50-unit building, but it's so uncomfortable.
Is this the same friend?
This might be another friend.
It's a whole therapy session.
This is a therapy. But even in business, there's times when you have staff or clients who you're like, I have to let this person go. It's not a good relationship, but you're not doing it.
I mean, I think therapy would be a
Is
great
that where it would go?
setting.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, maybe a life coach, sure, but I think we would end up matching what they need, and they're really dealing with difficult decisions. So we're going to walk through that with you. What is holding you up? Yes, I think there's therapists that are more solution focused, but I don't know. I think probably getting deeper is the way to go to really heal.
So break down the past first.
Yeah, kind of what's the pattern? What's holding you back?
Yeah.
Do you guys have a list of questions that you go off of? What's in the books that you guys secretly write in? And what do you write in those books?
It's scribbled. Does it look something like this?
It's actually a crossword puzzle we're
Yeah.
working on.
Sudoku.
Writing my to-do list.
Grocery store, Trader Joe's.
Yes.
I think I'm writing down keywords, key emotional words that you use, or phrases that you mentioned that
Ooh, like what?
I felt
That's good.
If someone says, I never feel listened to, or I'm such a loser. I did this yesterday. I might write down, I'm such a loser. So we're not really that concerned about content, although content is what we use to get into your story. So the fact that you're interested in why do I not buy that big building rather, why am I thinking smaller than I think I should? That's important, but the buildings and so on, but we're not going to really, if someone says, I want to get that same scenario, we're not going to ask you, okay, well, which of the buildings are you interested in buying?
Right.
Unless you want us to. If you really want to get into detail, we will. But what we want to talk about is how are you feeling around these things? And so that's what we're writing down typically is, and then sometimes, of course, you're mentioning your family and your children's names and your business name and your best friend's name that you guys just got in a fight with. And we want to remember all those things, and that helps too. So really kind of innocuous. We're not diagnosing you typically. We don't, in our company, we don't lean heavily on that medical model. It's so important that it's out there. It's a guide for us to begin to conceptualize what's going on. If you are, really suffering with depression or anxiety or something even more serious, we want to have a container around that. And the wisdom of everybody that's gone before us about what are those symptoms and what are what are the best ways to begin to, what are the markers that we're making headway on making things feel better?
Right.
But in general, we're not looking diagnostically. We're just relating to you.
So do you literally just, so say in that scenario, do you just write down like one word like loser and then continue? Or because I feel like, I don't know how I can't
know
write
it'd be
fast
hard to remember that in context.
and like pay attention and write fast. And are you guys,
Yeah.
are you both pen and paper or do you type?
And I think our practice really tries to stay away from
Computers, yeah.
phones. I really try to stay away from it because I think it is such a distraction. But I think when I initially started, I was really worried about, again, the distraction or breaking eye contact. But for me to be a good therapist, I think it's so important for me to be writing things down and to
Right.
keep my focus, at least for me personally. And so I'm writing keywords, or I love to, in my sessions, pull out things that I've heard a few times. Like, I don't know if you've noticed, but
Yeah.
you said, I'm not good enough,
Right.
three times in the last few minutes.
And I guess that brings me to like, what's the prep session to session? Do you guys go back and review notes, I would imagine, from before? And like, how does that steer the next session?
Well,
I try to open up my notebook and go back, especially with the names, and kind of refreshing myself. What did we talk about? I want to get those names right as much as I can. But yeah, I think that's going to be my review or prepping for the next session. And then supervision, like you talked about, Jill, that's a really big part of our job, and education, reading, listening to podcasts. It's a big part of it. Yeah.
yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then what do you two do to detox just what you hear? Because I know it's a lot to shoulder. And I imagine, how many people do you guys see in a day typically? What's the like normal amount of people?
Between 5 and 8.
5 to 8, yeah. And I imagine there's just a variety of stuff that you just don't want to think about beyond the day. So what do you do to shut it off?
Well, we're so blessed in that a lot of our clients are definitely dealing with a lot. I mean, everyone is dealing with a lot. If you really spend enough time with anyone, we all have stuff, right? That is a lot. But typically, our clients are not in a true crisis. Typically they have resources, or they have either economic or a family that they go home to, and a job that they is an important part of the way they see themselves and the way they give meaning to their life. So fortunately, a lot of our clients are people that we would be delighted to know outside the office. So I say all that to say that sometimes our days are heavier than others. Sometimes they're not that heavy. Now, people do come in and talk about their childhood or things that they've witnessed, or things that they, illnesses and so on that can be very heavy. So I think it's just important for us to take care of ourselves. I know I can kind of get into a state where it's like, I got this. This is what I do. And then all of a sudden I realize I'm going home and kicking the dog. Right. And I'm pretty miserable, in the outside world. So we have to be honest with ourselves and pay attention and take time off. Like, for example, we're closed. Our company closes between Christmas and New Year. You can work, but nobody does on the whole. So we want people, and then of course we have our other time off throughout the year, but we want people to rest and relax and walk the walk, do the things that we encourage our therapists to do, take care of what we need, check out, sleep in, and get away from some of the drama and the grind, if you will, of work. I think we have to admit it to ourselves and to our family too. I think our families are a big part of helping us cope. Sometimes we come home and we're grumpy, or, we've had it. And I think, having them understand that, please help us don't give us free rein to just yell at you, but give us grace too, that we've had our loving face on all day. And now that we can come home to someone who is ours, we can kind of show our shadow side a little bit.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
I feel like our entire country is on psychotropic drugs right now.
Yeah.
And I'm fairly anti-drug. I think for the most part, 98% of the drugs that people are taking are not studied enough, not diagnosed enough, not getting to the root cause. They're just taking them, and going about their life. You know, the idea that if you have heartburn, I think you should change how you're eating instead of just taking drugs and eating the same thing all the time.
Sure.
When it comes to anxiety, depression, and all these other, and ADHD might fall in that category. I don't quite know. I know that diet and what you eat and your environment plays a lot into ADHD as well. But where do you see this going in the next 20 years? The pharmaceutical companies basically have a hold on people's mental health, and they're diagnosing and giving drugs with no objective test whatsoever. And then I'm sure they're walking into your room being like, I've been put on all these different drugs by all these different providers, and it's affecting me.
Yeah. Well, the American Psychological Association says that, I mean, you make some really good points, let me say, first of all. But right now, the word on the street from the experts is that the best approach for the most common problems in the psychotherapy world, depression and anxiety, is a two-pronged approach. And one is psychotropic meds, and the other is talk therapy. So if you think about it that way, then folks are not being thrown if they're working on both those prongs, and preferably starting with the talk therapy.
For sure.
And then if they can't, if things are really stuck, and if they're not noticing any improvement, and if these symptoms are really causing a block in their life that is significant, then we can go to the meds. And many doctors will, I mean, not all, but many doctors will want to know that their client is in therapy. They'll refer to us to get their clients that they're writing scripts for into therapy. But yeah, I mean, sometimes they're just prescribing it at the request of the client.
For sure.
Yeah.
And
So
it's sometimes it's normal to be sad too. There's this idea that if someone passes away or your dog dies, you're going to be depressed for a little while, I think.
That's true.
And that's normal, and you should feel that, right?
That's true. That's what we call situational depression, and that is not something we would, again, put a diagnosis on. We are human, and we want it. We want everybody to feel ups and downs,
Right.
And we don't want these meds to make you feel numb, which some people do report they do, and so that would be definitely go back to the doc and talk about what else, or do we get off, or is there a different, But yes, so when we really talk about diagnosable depression, there's essentially, and I'm really simplifying this, but there's two common types, but they're both time dependent. So one is like, you have to have it for a year. You have to feel down and malaise and not yourself for a year. The other is a lot shorter. It's only 2 weeks, but that's called major depressive disorder. And you have to be like not able to get out of bed, not able to go to work, not eating, not sleeping. So, it's a significant, and you can't necessarily tie it to, your dog, your beloved pet, an event. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, I want to hear more. I want to dive into couples therapy a little bit, I think. Tell us what is emotionally focused therapy to start?
Well, and I'll say Katie and I are both couples therapists, so you help me
nice.
here, Katie. I know
Yes.
I've been doing a lot of the talking. Emotionally focused therapy is an approach, and in therapy we have lots of different approaches that people have codified and designed trainings and done research around. And all the therapy approaches we use at our practice are empirically tested and stand the test of time. But EFT is an approach that relies heavily on our accessing folks' emotion. So the theory being that when you're in a relationship, that when things are not going well, what's happening is that our emotions are getting triggered in a way that may not be accurate. So if you come home late, and your wife has made dinner and she's really upset, she might be, supposing that you don't care about the fact that she made a beautiful dinner for you guys, but that's actually not the case. But then her reactions are all built around that. He doesn't care about me. And then when she reacts that way, instead of you being able to apologize and lean in, you get triggered because it seems to you like she's always mad at you and doesn't appreciate how hard this company is for you to run. And I'm just using you guys as an example.
Just a classic story here.
For me.
I'm pretty sure every
Not
guy's
that
been
ever
through that.
happens. Right. So it sounds kind of simplistic, but EFT helps us break down that cycle and understand the messages that we've like coded in and printed in our soul. Like she's always mad at me or he doesn't care about what I care about. And it helps us use emotion to turn and talk to each other in a different way. And we ask people to do that in our office. It's pretty brief, but it can be awkward, but then people tend to start to love it. And once you turn and talk in a different way, like practice it, it's so much easier to do at home. So we love it.
So
and
both
yeah,
people are there for these sessions?
yeah.
Really?
Both people are there for these sessions
Now, right away, do you judge them based on where
Right
they
away.
sit?
right away.
Clothing, how they sit, where
They're
they
like
sit,
holding
are
hands.
they
They're
touching?
fake holding hands together.
Did they cross their legs towards each other, away from each other? Do you guys do all
Yeah,
that?
and I think we try to even name it sometimes in session of, wow, I think we
Yes.
just did a session together with a couple and you naming, wow, I just noticed how you just turned to your husband or I just noticed that hand touch or,
Right.
and I we're looking at the body language because it's so much.
Do you guys have
part of
pillows?
it.
Like, do people put pillows in between each other?
Yeah, it is interesting. I have these fluffy cloud pillows in my office. They're great, and really with all of my clients, whether individual or couples, what they do with those, whether they're holding on to it or let's stack them in between, let's make a wall. I think really all of it. We kind of see a lot of that.
Has anybody ever sat on the lap of their partner?
Great question. No, not in my
See,
experience.
that's the right
Jill.
move. I think
Be
that's the
epic.
move.
Yeah.
Because what do you
Just
do?
start making out.
Do you
First
mean
2 minutes.
You don't mean the
Discuss it.
therapist, you mean the partner.
No, yeah, not the therapist.
I'm sure some guys come in too, and they're just like, "I'm great. I don't know why."
Yeah,
I'm
I
here."
think
Oh,
that's
yeah.
for the
she
most
should.
part.
She should
She
be in
is the
therapy.
problem.
She's got a lot
Yes,
of work and
yes.
work through. Well, where'd you get that book, or was it a book? Like the 4 Ps: the parenting, provider,
Oh yeah,
playful, partner.
partner. Yes,
Wow.
that. Oh yeah, that was good.
Sounds like a good one.
that
I just
and-
scored a 38 out of 0.5.
Did you
out of 40?
So it's out of
No big
it's-
deal.
It's out of 10, and you ask your partner. We usually do this with our friends if they haven't heard of it, and we'll say, "All right," we'll say to the spouse, "All right, rate your husband on a scale of 1 to 10," and then it would be player, which is kind of like the flirty, like
Yeah, keeping it,
intimate
keeping it
side
lively.
of it.
Yeah.
And then there would be parenting.
Okay.
And then what were the other ones?
Partner,
Partner,
parenting,
partner,
provider.
provider. Yes, provider was one.
Oh, I love this.
So then
Maybe
some
we need this.
so
I
then
think
some
we
people
need
they're
this,
making
Katie.
a ton they're making a ton of money, so they give them like a 10 out of 10 on the provider, but they haven't seen their kids in
Sure.
3 weeks, so they give them a
Right.
1 out of 10, and you can almost always see the guy sitting there like, I'm a 39, not a 19. What is she talking about?
That's so interesting of what you were just sharing or explaining EFT is that it's kind of getting down to how we all show love of,
Yeah.
I'm trying to take care of you, acts of service. And so, but then maybe the partner is like, hello, like you're treating me like a child
Yeah.
or, provider of like, I'm going to work every day and I'm, taking care of the home, breadwinner, whatever. And they're showing the love, but the other person's not receiving it.
Yeah. So is that the Gary Chapman 5 love language
Yeah,
stuff?
and I use that language a lot. I don't know if there's a lot of maybe science. I won't get into that, but I think it's so true
Right.
of the love languages and how we receive love, and also want to be, or how we give love, and then also how we want to be loved. I
Yeah,
think it's
for sure.
often what we're, how we're showing love is often how we want to be loved.
Yeah, and it's one thing to know. Like, I know my wife's love language, and
Mm-hmm.
I still struggle to do it. And
Yep.
it's words of affirmation.
Yeah.
Like, I blame it on my vocabulary. My English wasn't great growing up. Like, we had, in 12th grade English, we were allowed to still read Goosebumps, like the books.
Yeah.
And I don't think I didn't complete a book. I just did the Cliff Notes, book reports, that kind of stuff. I don't think I read my first book till I was in college. Or no, I read Charlotte's Web. Charlotte's Web was the first and only book I read. So I don't think my vocabulary is great. So to say like, hey, you look great today, it's going to be the same thing over and over. You know what I mean? Whereas she has this way with words. It's just,
Aw.
and then that's not my level. Acts of service, which she does great with that too.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to do. I just make a list. So ChatGPT is, I'll give you the secret so far. ChatGPT has been my go-to, but I don't always have access to that on the fly.
Well, the EFT answer to that, and you've got me in the palm of your hand right now, is just how much you care.
Yeah.
And I'm sure your wife sees that, and that says a whole different thing. You know, that you really want to show up for her in the way that she has prescribed, that she prefers, and that's powerful.
Yeah, not only are you thinking about the words of affirmation, but you're wanting the affirmation to
Be different.
Be great.
Well, that's what I feel like. I feel like every time I have to write a card or something, it needs to be different and better. But it's not generally, unless ChatGPT has done that. So when she hears this, she knows the trick. She knows what I'm doing.
Knows.
Yeah,
You
she
just
knows what
outed
I'm up to.
yourself.
Yeah.
But that's really lovely that you care that much.
Yeah,
you
I try
know?
to.
Yeah, my husband has said that. I've seen him like staring at the card, and I'm like, honey, don't worry about it, you know.
Just
and
XOXO in your
I think
name.
I said that too, right? Because that's what I
That's
get
what I
now. I think I
like,
reassured
see?
him too much. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's just that.
You just want to know that he's sitting there staring blankly and trying hard. It's not about the actual words. It's about how much he's struggling to write
Catch
it.
him writing the card.
Now, along with this, so masculine, feminine, Randy's marriage counselor was big on masculine, feminine, and contracts and all this stuff, which I've grasped onto. And I mean, I feel like it makes a lot of sense that in a relationship, one partner needs to be more masculine, or it needs to balance each other out, essentially. So if you have 100% masculine, you need 100% feminine. And it doesn't have to be male masculine, female feminine. It just has to balance. So if it's 70% masculine and 30% feminine, then the other person has to be opposite. Does that fall in line with what you guys see?
Well, listen, if it worked for you, I mean, there are so many different approaches. And so I think balance is a beautiful word.
Yeah.
And whatever you want to look at that to feel like I'm not giving all of, I'm not the one that's showing up in all the traditionally masculine ways or all the traditionally feminine ways. I don't typically use that language, but like I said, there's so many great therapists out there and lots of different approaches to reach people. And what matters is that it works for you and that you trust your therapist to give you
It was interesting. Her name is Dr. Pat Allen. She's wrote some books, and she was the mentor to the millionaire matchmaker, Patty Stanger. Have you heard of her?
Oh.
So she's the old
So
lady
she's
in
not
that
here.
show.
Okay,
She's 8.
okay.
I don't know what she is, 88
I was
now.
thinking she was
But
in
this was,
town.
no,
Okay.
this was 14 years ago. But it was my uncle gifted us because it was whatever it was, $400, and we couldn't afford it because we were just getting out of school. But he gifted us
that's
1
so
hour.
nice.
But she went through all these things that I never thought about. Like we had to negotiate closet space, even though we didn't have a house yet.
Okay.
It was let's get your expectations for what
That
your
feels-
closet space looks like.
That's interesting.
And then let's get your
For starting
expectations
out,
for
yeah.
food and what things they're looking at. But the masculine feminine thing was interesting because she would talk about things like driving the vehicle. So it would be like a masculine thing to drive the vehicle, which I generally 99% of the time I want to drive and I only want to drive. So it wouldn't work out great for me if I had a very masculine partner who also wanted to drive. It would just be this little thing that you do day after day after day where right now it works out perfect for me. If we're going somewhere, I just get in the driver's seat. She just hops in the passenger seat. We don't talk about it. We don't deal with it. If we're sitting in a restaurant, I always want to sit with my face to the door. That's
Yeah.
perfectly normal. She
Yeah.
just sits with her back to the door and it doesn't bother her. She doesn't have to turn around. But she went through all these things like over and over. And I was like, oh man, once I understand these, it makes my life so much easier.
Wow. Sounds like a really cool example of just taking time, to think about things and how helpful that can be.
Yes.
And I imagine that was many years ago and you're still
Yeah,
leaning
that was
on
14
that.
years ago. And it was
That's
amazing. It was the best $400 my uncle's
Wow.
ever
You
spent
really set the
that I've never spent.
I would say you really set the stage for expectations. I think so often we see couples who have never talked about who's driving
Right.
or closet space, and it becomes something, or it's so scary, or it's a big confrontation or dilemma of how do I talk to them about this? I've never said anything. So I think that's what really I'm pulling out is I haven't used the masculine feminine language, but I think you setting the stage and kind of laying out those kind of, it seems like little small things, but they are kind of big things.
When you do them over and
Yeah,
over and
That's
over.
right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Has there been anybody brought in to therapy that really didn't want to be there? And like, how do you get that person talking and like,
Yeah.
what do you do?
I'm sure you see that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See it a lot with kids or teens. Moms and dads are bringing them in, and yeah.
Yeah.
Their arms
And
are
also
crossed.
with the couples, one of the
That too.
spouses is usually the driver of the
Right.
therapy. And it isn't always the female.
Yeah.
I think, again, like you were saying before about relationship, and we are both touching on that. I mean, if we're good, and honestly, Katie and I are both really, really good therapists. If we may say that,
Don't mean to toot my own horn, but here I go.
But here I go.
Say more. Just kidding.
We want by the time that person leaves for them to say, okay, sign me up, or I'm glad I came in. When do we come back? And I think if you know how to listen and validate we don't want to act like we're blowing smoke and just like agreeing to everything. There's an art to it, and yet acting like we're still having our own input and that we have something to bring to the table, but we are understanding and attuning to their pain or how they feel. Then we usually can convert somebody into believing this is going to be helpful.
Yep.
And then they feel so good about it. They feel so good that they're doing what their loved one wants them to, or suggesting they want to do. And with kids, we work a lot with them and their parents too. So we want to heal. If children feel pressed by their parents to come in or to change at home, again, all of that is about the emotion underneath. Mom and dad are worried about raising a good person. Child feels trapped or controlled, and they're ready to show mom and dad that they can make healthy choices, but they feel like they need space to do it or whatever. And we want them to talk about that rather than the fact that they won't bring the cereal bowl down from their bedroom or won't get up for school.
Right.
And once we understand each other's emotional space or emotional, needs and positive intentions that are almost always under there, then the behavior falls in line.
Yeah, that's good.
And the resistance, dissipates.
Yep.
A lot of validating and validating the emotion with the teenager being, disgruntled or upset or I'm not talking to you, and me leaning into that of validating that. Like, I get it. I'm a stranger to you. I am another person asking you questions in your day or wanting to talk to you. So really, I think it's so important to build that
Teenagers know
relationship.
everything.
Yeah, truly.
Yes.
Got it all
do.
figured out.
I'm
at
validating
17.
that. Yeah.
I have a question about birth control, because there was a big study that came out saying that women who are on oral contraceptives choose different men than if they're not on oral
I heard about
contraceptives.
this.
So my feeling is that there's a lot of women who are taking birth control for a long time. They meet their spouse, they get married. Then once they're married, they get off birth control. And then all of a sudden their hormones completely change. And they're saying, who is this person that I married? And why did I choose them? Because they have a different preference now.
I've heard of the study.
Yeah.
I have heard of it. I don't know if I'm not an expert in research and really have dove into that, but I would probably, I think with birth control, it's up to them, like what we were talking about with medication earlier. And, I don't know if I would lean into that, but like what you were describing with just having this like premarital kind of gift of, or I don't know if you're married yet, but I guess it doesn't matter. That like laying out expectations, laying out the expectations of kind of marriage, what the future would look like. I don't know. I feel like I would be more worried about that versus the birth control. But again, I don't know.
Or
Having
menopause
those-
maybe would change
Yeah,
things,
maybe.
or men's testosterone plummeting at 40.
What?
There's that old man again in the door, closing it.
Well, I guess what's the speed at which you guys see married couples coming in? Is it in like year 2, year 3, year 7? Because usually year 1, everything's just great typically. So maybe that plays into this study a little bit on as the birth control wears off and year 2 hits.
I always heard 7 years was when they're all breaking up.
That's the classic 7-year itch idea that people really are able to identify that they're unhappy. by year 7. I would say it's all over the place, but typically not newlyweds. Yes, although some people have the foresight to come in as and get some premarital counseling like you did, but it's usually after a few years. But before I came, I was in the Lexington office, and we had one of our elderly couples coming up, and then they're not newlyweds. You know, they've been married their whole life, and they're seeking help, and they have been coming for some time, and they come every other week, like clockwork. So it's kind of all over the map. Yeah, I think once people realize that it works, and you know, it's something that's now not shameful to do, they're signing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had the conversation of, even with a couple that is young or early on, almost normalizing even some of their conflict, because they feel like they're supposed to be in the honeymoon stage, or, oh my gosh, we're having problems already. What does that mean?
Right.
Because we're supposed to have problems 5 years in, 7 years in, or way later on. So I really try to almost normalize that. Like, wow, you guys chose to do something so hard even early, and you know, maybe most people don't. And you guys having conflict now, maybe you're kind of getting some of these fights out of the way and learning the conflict cycle early, because we all have it.
Yeah.
So I don't
Even
know.
with the first kid, that's a
Oh,
whole nother life cycle.
Oh, yeah. That's what came to my mind about the study, which is fascinating, and I have not read it, and I need to find it. Whether it be going off or on birth control, or having your first child, or moving across the country, everybody is in a different marriage than they thought they would be when they fell in love. Everybody. And, you know, we know a little bit about why that is. I mean, Carl Jung postulated that once that we're picking someone in our partner that we know subconsciously we're going to be able to work out some of the issues that we had as children, and that we watched our parents go through. And so where it's coming, when we get married, it's coming where we are going to go show that shadow, as I mentioned before, and start bringing in the less easy to be with parts of ourselves. And we're going to do that. We're going to do that jig. We're going to do that tango with our partner. And our hope, again, subconsciously, is that we're going to work it through. And be a better person on the other side. But we don't have the language for all that. But yeah, regardless of what changes, just the fact that we're married and secure, then we start being more real, and it starts to, you know, get messy sometimes.
For sure. Right.
Yeah.
And I've always heard that men get married expecting their wife not to change, and women get married expecting their man to change.
That's brilliant.
Fascinating. And I was straight up
Truth.
front. I was like, I am not changing. I am who I am.
Truth.
I don't know if she still bought it.
That's so interesting.
What do you guys like consciously think about what you wear into your sessions? Like, do you
I
go
wanted to ask that too.
neutrals, bright colors,
Bright nails.
nails?
I was curious if there was a purpose behind the nails.
You know, yes, Christmas red. I don't know if I think about it in the therapy sense of colors or bright or neutral. I love clothes, and, you know, figuring out my outfits during the week. I don't know if I actually think about, you know, my outfits. I think I'm thinking in work, you know, professional sense the most, and just kind of being in a professional. I do think I do kind of lean maybe more towards trying to dress professional. I think it does maybe kind of add a layer of, I really care about, I don't know, I really care about what how I present, my appearance, and in the sense of, I just want to show up here, and that this is a, you know, therapy is expensive, and you being here and kind of almost prioritizing it in that way of, I really take a lot of pride in this.
Do you guys
This may
wear
be the best
glasses
way.
during the sessions?
Always.
Got it.
Do you take them? Do you take them off at certain times?
Each time,
Like
or
look
just
out the top of them.
Yeah.
Yes, to like wipe them off. They're always dirty. So I'm doing that. But
22 minutes in, you wipe.
Yeah.
There's like a little alarm going off. Pull your glasses fully.
time.
But it's a good point about how you dress,
It
because
is a
the
good
next
point.
generation coming up wants to be so casual at all times. And then the generation above us, I don't know what they would be, but they were like suit and tie. I remember the chiropractors were all suit, ties, jackets, trying to adjust all these people with a suit jacket on and a tie falling in their face. So we were kind of the next generation where we're still like dress shoes, dress pants, but you can get away with a polo or a sweater or something like that. And now the next generation coming up just wants to wear tennis shoes, shorts,
No shoes.
and a t-shirt, or no shoes.
Yeah, bedroom slippers.
Yeah.
Right? Ugg slippers,
Flip-flops.
Flip-flops. Well, I think you said it beautifully. We really want to be approachable, but we want to look professional and we want to look modest. I mean, again, we said this earlier, but they're staring at us the whole time, not necessarily thinking about us. Hopefully their mind is, everywhere it needs to be, but we want to do our part in making the whole experience, about them, and we take it seriously. They are making an investment, so
You're not going to wear something skimpy in there during one of these couple sessions. Smart.
exactly. Spelled it out for us. You spelled it out.
Jill's going through her closet like, oh, no, not today.
Yep. She tries to say it subtly and you just throw it out there.
How much do you guys allow the patient to know about you? Like just in general, because I know that like in the sports world, for example, like you like to know your coach was, say, a good soccer player so that you could get coached by them.
Yeah.
Is that something that you guys like put out there? Yeah.
Well, in general, no. In general, we want to be what's called a blank slate, which is something Freud said, a tabula rasa. We don't want to be because the thinking is once we put something about ourselves in the room, it's always there. So, and we use the phrase in the room in so many different ways, but if you kind of play with that metaphor, if I talk about the fact that I'm a mother of 3 and I live in Lexington and whatever else, I'm a Democrat, then that's always like taking up a space permanently in the room. And it's
Right.
really hard, I think, for then the client to feel completely free. Now, on occasion, there is something that's very important for the client to know. Like they might be really wrestling with their mother or their child or their, I can't think of a better example, but they might be like, and particularly if we really have a good relationship with the client, they might say, okay, I've never asked, but you've got kids, right? And it just feels to me that it's appropriate to answer yes and just to move
Gotcha.
on.
Yeah.
A lot of other therapists will say, tell me why you need to know. And again, then we're not talking about content. We're moving into what we call the process. And so there can be some real richness in that conversation. Some clients might not tolerate that. They might be like, what the hell do you mean? Why do I need to know? So again, it's our professional judgment. There's nothing wrong. That's actually a really good and cool, powerful question. But in general, we want to stay out of the room.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Okay.
just let it be all you. Yeah.
But for the most part, you guys are open to like them asking you guys questions, at least at some level, right?
No, I don't know if hoping.
That was a no. Straight up no for both of them.
Okay.
Well, I don't, because here's where my head goes to that. Before I had my financial plan. When I got into the business, or into like a business, I was like, all right, I got to get a financial planner. So I met with him, but I wanted to see, and I listened to what he wanted, and he gave me here's all what I think you should invest in. And then I said, I want to see yours in order to see that you're A, investing, and B, that you're invested in the same thing that you're recommending I invest in.
What?
And the guys who said no, I was like, all right, no problem. And then I found someone who would. And then I found the guy who was like, yep, I'll show you. And he shows, yep, I put money in every month, just like I told you. Everything that I own is exactly what I just recommended to you. And I was like, let's do it. Let's go.
You show
That
me
is
mine, I'll show you yours.
Well, so you just-
Fascinating.
I
So
mean, I
you
just feel like
asked
there's
to
a-
see their portfolio?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
The gonads on this guy
Well,
Fascinating.
over here.
because-
And it makes so much sense. I don't mean,
Yeah.
I'm just like really impressed.
Well, I wouldn't want
gonads.
if someone came to me and wanted to get
Balls of
healthy,
steel.
but I wasn't healthy. Balls of steel,
They
that's
just
good.
drag on the ground. when he
Let's make a
wants it.
plaque of that too.
Wow.
But if somebody's like
so who
was
is your investment guy? Because I mean, you've done all the vetting. Now I
now
need his
I've
name.
already done it.
or her name. Yeah. So
But
yeah,
then, maybe there's like a credibility side of it that you have to develop then without letting any personal information out.
well, yes, I get that. And I mean, we could probably talk about this all day. I mean, I guess I'm thinking that we don't necessarily have a portfolio like that. What we do have is a thriving office that you would see.
Testimonials.
And testimonials and the degrees that we have on the website and the license and after that, it's more of a style issue. And so if you were to come in and say, I want to see testimonials about you, and I want to know like how long you've worked here and why did you leave your last place? I would not shame you for that in any way. I would be so curious, but I would also want to know, it seems like you're terrified, or I might suggest, it seems like you're terrified that you're going to invest time and share personal information with someone who isn't up to snuff. You know, you really want this to go well. This is so critical to you. And so we might, yes, give you some answers if it was that important to you, but then also talk about what's the emotion behind it.
Or I don't want to go to someone and talk about my commitment issues when they're bouncing to a new place every year and they've been in 5 offices in the last 5 years.
Exactly.
I'm thinking of an example of a client really, they, I think, probably got this confirmation in the, intake process, but they really wanted to make sure that I was not going to push religion or I was not going to work under that model. Pretty much from, religious trauma. And so I was able to answer, her questions in a way where, it didn't kind of dive into my own stuff, but me confirming
Makes
again
sense.
that's
It's a
not the
great
model
example.
that we work under.
Now, have you guys ever pulled the wrong file and called somebody the wrong name or went through the wrong notes and was like, oh, yeah, last time you said that, whatever. It's like, nope.
I know Jill has a good
story. One of my famous moments was when I called the husband by the name of the man that the wife had the affair with. And so I'm just here to be humble. I'm here to be humble and say that
Yikes.
I recovered. They gave me enough grace and trust, but so we're
What did you
human.
do?
We're
How do you
human.
recover from that?
Oh my gosh.
Pretend
I
like it
don't
didn't happen?
remember. I
Yeah.
think I
Sick
blacked
for-
it all out.
That's when you fart and you go, oh my God, sorry about that. And then you just move.
Do something worse. What could be worse now?
I actually think I think they were kind enough to giggle with me. I mean, we do bring a lot of laughter into the room. I mean, we aren't totally just like making people sweat. And, we like to laugh at ourselves. We like to laugh at anything that's funny. And we love to apologize when we mess up. We're the first to, we want to hopefully be modeling healthy behavior and apologize sincerely and more than once if we need to. And ask about how, the lingering effect of whatever faux pas. The more common mistake might be to mess up our calendar, although we really pride ourselves on keeping, wonderful calendar efficacy. But because, if you're going to take the time to drive over and come to session, we need to be there, be on time and be ready. But it can happen. And so we try to just own it and
Okay.
Love it.
Yeah, I was always terrified about that just in our world because we go in with a set of x-rays. And there was a case where I was about to walk in the room and luckily I just saw it was a female set of x-rays. And the only way I knew was there were nipple rings on the x-ray, like they're metal rings that came up and I'm walking into a male. Because otherwise, it's really hard to tell whether it's bra straps or things like that. But for the most part, it's like I close out of all the X-rays, look at the name again, and then open them back up.
Yeah.
So we had to change some policies.
Well, being in the medical world like you are, and actually working on people's bodies, that's typically for us we have our computer with our notes, but we see the face and it's like so relational. We're there. So you guys have a higher level of pressure there.
And I don't have too many more questions, but one was, is there ever like where you feel like you're digging too much?
Yeah.
Like, is there a point where you go, we just need to stop right there?
Oh, well, I mean, the way I interpreted your question is just the pace at which
like too
we
many
push.
questions.
No, let's leave that skeleton in that closet
Well,
and close the closet door.
Let's bury it
well,
deeper.
we want that skeleton, but people are so guarded, and some people are so defended, and they don't. It's so hard to get them to see themselves. It's all about what's happening out there that everybody else does wrong, and so we do try to get people to look at things differently. Look at that skeleton, but we have to go so slow sometimes, or as to not offend or push away. But we love it when people say, you know what, you pushed too hard last time, or you didn't, you lost the
Just be
attunement with
open,
me.
yeah.
I feel like you were on
Yeah.
my husband's side, or, my mom's side. And,
Oh, right.
and then it's like, oh, thank you for telling me. Let's recalibrate.
Do you ever go on a side? Like, do you guys ever choose a side and kind of press that a little bit? Like, if you know somebody's right, or maybe that's not I don't know. Is that your call?
Yeah, they're for sure somebody's sitting there and they're completely wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you?
I think it's natural for us as humans to maybe take in the story and then, maybe have an opinion. But I think part of our job and what we have to do to be good at our job is this unconditional positive regard.
Right.
Treating the relationship and really knowing that there's parts of, not excusing the behavior, but that, each person has their part in
Yeah.
it, big or
Yeah.
small. And it's hard to do. We have to constantly probably keep, keep ourselves in check constantly. And that's with supervision, seeing another perspective. Having Jill join is always fun for me, especially with couples.
Well,
So I have
double
the
team.
expert. Yeah.
We double
Yeah.
team
Really?
quite a lot.
Yes, it's
We
so fun, and I
pull
learn
each
so
other
much.
into sessions.
Yeah, I have the expert.
How does that work? People ask for it, or do you just surprise them, or you ask them if it's okay? Or
Yeah,
The last one usually, we'll say, look, we want to get, is it okay if Jill comes in or Terry, our clinical supervisor, and we just like for her to observe. Sometimes we'll do them together from jump.
yep,
Like
yep.
we've had a couple of cases that
Yes.
Katie and I have worked together, and we learn from each other. And it's a big part of the culture of our organization that you're not on your own, and that we lean into everybody's brain power to learn from each other and see each other's style. When you walk into therapy, you close the door. Nobody knows what's happening in there. I don't like that. That's why we like to tape.
Right.
We like to see, how am I doing? How are other people doing this? And then when we talk about a stuck place, if someone else has witnessed it or if we have it on tape, it's gold.
You can go right to it.
Go right
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys don't. I think it's a different part of therapy, but like people's sexual exploration side of things, is that in your realm, or is that you get? Oh, it is.
Well, you can become a certified sex therapist, but I shouldn't say but, and it is a part of what comes up in the therapy room. Is
Right.
just, there's a lot of, I don't like the word dysfunction, but there's a lot of dissatisfied people that are married and sex has just stopped, or
Right.
one person wants something that the other person doesn't want. And then, like you said, there's curiosity about who am I sexually. Now we have this
Right.
wide spectrum that we all honor. And so, and many times it's the therapist that brings it up first, because people can be hesitant, and we'll often say, how's your sex life? Are you, what do you need
Right.
to talk
I was
about
wondering
there?
if I feel like that's got to be a big topic. We were down in Florida recently, and I was telling them about have you guys seen the whole loofah thing with the villages, like the old person home in Florida? Oh, you don't?
No, we need your news feed.
Holy
know.
cow. So they hang
loofah.
different loofahs on their golf carts on what they're open to.
Oh.
And then they just drive
So
around.
like the pineapple thing. but
Yes.
loofahs.
Yes. Same world. So like different color loofah means different things.
it's wild.
Someone help me, please. I've got to get caught up because it's fascinating.
It's like this whole thing in Florida. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Florida's just a wild place
Well,
in general.
Florida,
though, when
yeah,
we were there, it just feels like you're at a different country.
And I'm from Florida.
Are
I'm
you?
Floridian, Miami. Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, but it comes up, and we are, we don't judge.
Yeah.
We really don't judge, and
Yeah.
our one of our credos is less judgment, more curiosity. We want people to feel open to talk about whatever it is that will help them, and or that feels like they need to bring up. And so
Yeah.
That's a good
seen
take.
We're there
movie-
for it.
Have you seen the movie Old School, right? Where you're in the nest. We're in the nest. Does anybody ever say like we're in the nest and we can talk about anything?
So, okay, seen it, but it's been a little bit. So again, the reference, I'm sorry. We're not
Oh
keeping up
my
with y'all.
gosh,
I'm
it's
sorry.
hilarious.
My husband would be like,
He,
Oh yeah, he knows this.
it's Will Ferrell, and he just starts
I
like
love Will Ferrell.
Yeah, he starts describing like the waitresses like panties and like goes through the whole thing. His wife's sitting there, and he's like, "I thought we're in the nest. We're in the." Oh, we're not supposed to talk about that. So I guess what's the vision for the office? I guess moving forward is my only other kind of thing. Is there any grand thoughts on what's next?
Well, we are so proud of the office that we just opened in
new
June.
one,
Yeah, and it's got
Looks amazing.
12 therapy rooms and a coffee bar and two beautiful waiting rooms, a whole section for children and families with their own separate waiting room. And so just doing that and doing that well, taking care of the 14 therapists that work for us. My responsibility is to get them full of clients. Their responsibility is to keep those clients with good therapy. So I don't want to get too far out of over my skis. One thing that we've been doing this year, and Katie is hugely instrumental in this, is collaborating with a lot of companies in town. And that has been so wonderful. Just off the top, Trust Us, Studio Fire, Trust Us Theater, Studio Fire. We have a soft collab going with Prisma Hospital. But what we're doing is just Hotel Trundle is another one. Is we're EQ Fitness. Yes.
Well, now that you're on Columbia's
Sheila
hottest
Law.
podcast,
Yeah, I forgot to
you're
tell you
just
guys.
gonna
That's
be
what I'm
flooded.
collaborating with you.
We
People
got to
are
collab
flooding.
with you guys.
Right.
Yeah, and the idea is it's nothing contractual or overly complicated, but we want to introduce ourselves to companies so that when their employees are suffering through something or just need someone to talk to, that they know of us and they can say, look, here's, of course, there's tons of good therapists in town, so many, but you know about us too. And you can say Jill Smith and Associates Counseling is an option. And in fact, the employees of Columbia Family Chiropractic, get a slight discount for going over there. And just because I think employers want to be able to do more to take care of
Yeah, I love
their
that.
employees. Good employees are so hard to find. So
Yeah.
we're just sort of getting their name out there as an option. So yeah.
Love
And
it.
what was the creativity behind the name? How'd you come up with the name?
Yeah, ego much, right? Well, I was thinking about all different kinds of things, including the nest. You mentioned that a minute ago. You
That
and
would have
Will.
been amazing.
I know, and then it became a whole candle line and everything else. But one of my friends who I really respect said, well, you are your brand. Go with you.
That's
And
great.
so this was before everybody else was doing it. Does that count? I mean, it's kind of...
I think it's smart.
So it may
Yeah.
evolve one day to Katie
think it's
Haney therapy. That would be the...
No, I like it. I like
Thank
that.
you.
move.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You guys
just
are
tell-
great.
yeah,
It's
just
so
tell-
easy to talk to, the two of you.
Thank you.
If you need a side hustle,
Well, we're way
we
over
know,
on time right now.
we know where you guys need to come work because y'all would be great therapists.
That's
You're
right.
so easy
Get
to
us a
talk
room.
to.
Yeah, let's set up a room down there.
Yes.
I'll do. No, I'm
Actually-
already doing the smash room in there.
Yeah.
We
I'll
already
just
got that
break
idea.
things.
No, we used to joke like he built a shed in his old backyard, and we used to joke like, "Yep, just come over, Randy and I will meet with you in the shed, and we'll talk you through like your problems."
For a small fee, right?
Yes, of course.
So tell everyone how to find you, how your preferred method is if they want to be a client. What does that look like?
Most clients come through our website, which is jsacounseling.com, JSA as in Jill Smith and Associates, counseling.com. There's a quick form, fill it out, and our team is on it. You'll hear back from us immediately. Or you can call us at 803-814-5559. But if you hit us up on Google, all that information will pop up right away.
Perfect.
And we're big enough that we can get you in this week.
Sweet.
So a lot of places have a waiting list, but we're really proud that we don't. So
Yeah. And
Yeah.
what about Instagram? If, can they
we're
DM
on
you guys?
Insta, Jill Smith Counseling, and DM us on Insta.
Yep, that's another way.
Yeah.
And then I have a little Instagram therapy, a site, Katie Haney Therapy. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Sweet.
Love it. All right. Well, we appreciate you guys being on the
Thanks
show.
for being on.
Thank you for having us. It
thank
means
you.
a lot. This was so much fun.
We're here for the health of it.
For the health of it.